Mistrial, all my beautiful people. How are you doing today? And welcome to the alternate point of view. And I am Tracy Lee. Thank you so much for watching this channel. Thank you to everyone who is new, and thank you to everyone who has been making comments and liking and sharing. And please do follow this channel. Most of the people who view and watch don't actually follow. So we need to get those views up and those subscriptions up. I really appreciate you all very much. Thank you so much. So now let's get into this discussion. So today we're going to continue on the ranch because I did cover the first part of the trial of George Allen Kelly because this was a trial that I thought was kind of shocking that it actually even went to trial. Because this is about a 75-year-old man in Arizona who I'm going to recap for you real quick because we are on verdict watch, because this man is accused of killing an illegal immigrant. Yes, you heard that right, y'all. He is a U.S. citizen, and he is accused of killing an illegal immigrant because apparently Mr. Kelly called Border Patrol in the early afternoon one day and said, there are people shooting and I may have to shoot back. Now, he did shoot his AK-47 up in the air, is what he says, right? So the Border Patrol calls the local sheriff. The Border Patrol and the sheriff go out to Mr. Kelly's property. They search all over the property. They search because Mr. Kelly's property backs up to the border and the end of the border wall. Now, Mr. Kelly, they look and search all over. Now, let's also put into perspective where Mr. Kelly is at when he begins shooting in the air. Now, Mr. Kelly is on his back porch, okay? He was in the house. He heard gunshots. He heard shooting. He saw or could possibly see several people off in the distance. Now, off in the distance, when I say that, I mean like a football field away. Now, Mr. Kelly has two fence lines off of his back porch, and by the way, he has a pergola and a cement area for a back patio area. He has two fence lines, a big area of brush and trees, and a pasture kind of area. It's dry, of course, it's Arizona, okay? But he is a football field length away from the end of his land. Now, he's a rancher, and he shoots up in the air with his AK-47. So those are legal in the United States. So he shoots up in the air to scare whomever is near his land to get away. Now, he does call that in. He does call and say, I am going to fire back. I will probably have to fire back. And so he does that. He shoots up in the air, warning shots. He doesn't shoot because there are no shell casings out towards or away or wherever. There's no anything showing that he had fired any shots out on his property. Now, the Border Patrol, the sheriff, all of the officers come out. They search his property. They go all the way to the border, and they look around the south end, the north, everywhere. They look, and they find nothing. They see nothing. So they've searched his property. They don't see any evidence of anybody. So clearly they believe that, well, whoever was shooting or whatever was happening, they're gone now. You clearly scared them away, right? So this was, this took several hours, okay? So now Mr. Kelly decides to kind of go patrol his property line, see what's going on, and lo and behold, what does he find? He finds a body. Now, this is an area that the Border Patrol and everybody already searched. So what does Mr. Kelly do? Well, of course, Mr. Kelly is like, oh my gosh, I have to call this in. But he's nervous because he's like, crap, now there's a dead Mexican on my land. And I just called in a shooting earlier. But now he's not worried about it really because they all have searched his property. But he is nervous because he's like, how the heck did this happen, you know? So he calls it in and he's like, you know, because this isn't the first time he's found a dead body on his property. So he calls it in. He's kind of, you know, like, hey, you know, there's something on my property. Y'all need to come check it out. And they're like, is it like an animal? And he's like, well, it's not, you know, not an animal, you know, but so he's trying to like code word tell them somebody needs to get out here and they need to get out here right now. So they get out there, they find this body of a 48-year-old man who has a camouflage backpack, a fanny pack, a radio, a two-way radio, okay? And he does have a bullet wound in him. Now, they begin to question Mr. Kelly and are asking him, like, how did you come across this? And they start to kind of investigate the situation. They don't take any notice of the fact that this man's backpack is empty, that the fanny pack is half ripped off of his body, and that the radio, you know, they don't investigate any of those things, okay? So what they immediately do is they immediately arrest Mr. Kelly because they are told that Mr. Kelly called in shots on his property. They don't realize that these shots happened hours earlier and that this man's body is still warm to the touch. So they are thinking, because this is another set of officers at another shift, they are thinking this just recently happened. So they begin to accuse Mr. Kelly of killing this man. And they begin to browbeat Mr. Kelly in an interrogation at the police department and Miss Kelly. Now, keep in mind, these are senior citizens. They're in their 70s, okay? And they're telling him, you killed this man. You shot him, you called it in, and you shot him, and you're under arrest for murder. Now, I'm not sure what topsy-turvy world we live in, where even if he did kill this man, how in the world does it happen that this guy was on his property? He's not a citizen of the United States of America. Mr. Kelly is. And yet somehow, some way, the United States of America is prosecuting and charging a citizen of the United States of America for the death of a non-citizen of the United States of America. In what world does that make sense? Make that make sense, y'all. So not only that, but some witness comes forward from Mexico, and the police and everybody go over to Mexico, where they have zero jurisdiction, and they meet this said witness in a motel in Mexico and take his statement because he was with said murdered man, and claims that they were just coming to cross the border to get the American dream. And by the way, he doesn't understand half the things he's being asked because he doesn't speak any English. And the translator, by the way, doesn't translate everything correctly. He translates it to make it match the narrative that the U.S. Officers are trying to write in order to get Mr. Kelly charged with this crime. So they get the directions wrong as to which way the guys say they were going. They're not even sure if this guy was actually with the guy that was shot. And they ask him, have you ever been under arrest? Have you ever been in prison in America? Have you ever been caught by Border Patrol in America? Have you ever been convicted of a felony in America? Have you ever been anything in America? And this guy's like, nope, nope, nope. And then they look and they find that, oh, but yes, he has. He has been caught actually several times and returned to Mexico. Oh, and he has spent time in prison in America for drug trafficking, which is very common, as the Border Patrol said on the stand, that it is very common for these kind of guys to carry camouflage backpacks, fanny packs, and two-way radios, and lots of times weapons, because they are carrying drugs back and forth across the border. And because Mr. Allen's property ended at the border wall, it was easy to go across his property and go back. And there's actually pictures on the guy's cell phone, the one that was shot, where he's actually standing on a hill wearing the exact same items, the fanny pack and the camouflage backpack and the two-way radio, everything, where he's been several times back and forth across the border. But the prosecution writes a picture and a narrative of these guys were just trying to come here and get the American dream, and Mr. Kelly shot them for it and killed this man who was trying to come here and live the American dream. Now, keep in mind again, this is a football field length away. That's not impossible. It is not impossible to kill someone from a football field length away. It is not. That is not impossible. It has happened. It has been done. Let's say, for instance, the Marine in the University of Texas killings from the tower. But also keep in mind that Mr. Kelly is 75 years old. Also, this witness claims that Mr. Kelly was standing over his friend after he shot him. How is that physically and humanly possible when Mr. Kelly was a football field length away and he had to pass through his patio, 2 fence lines, and a football length of brush and trees? Also, they had the police come out and do a drone coverage picture of the land, and the defense asked, why can't you get the drone lower so you can see the exact sight line from Mr. Kelly to the sight line of where this guy was supposedly shot? Well, I can't do that because my drone would have crashed into one of the trees or one of the brush or something like that, because it would be too low. So you're saying that your drone can't get low enough, and you expect us to believe that Mr. Kelly could see and get through all of that brush and all of those trees and all of that fence line to be able to stand over the body of this gentleman that he supposedly shot? Which also leads me to the ballistics. So the ballistics do not match anything of Mr. Kelly's. They can't match the bullet to Mr. Kelly's weapon at all. So they are just literally going off of circumstantial evidence, because it just so happened that Mr. Kelly called in a shooting earlier in the day, and it just so happened that later on in the evening, a warm, dead body with a bullet in it ends up on his property later that night, which, by the way, was in the exact spot that Border Patrol and troopers and police officers and everyone searched before and did not find that body. So, could it be possible that this is a gang-related, cartel-related type shooting? Could that be possible? Could it be possible that his body was drugged there because his fanny pack and his backpack were basically pulled over his body? His two-way radio was still on him. His backpack was empty. It had none of the things. They didn't even test any of those things. They didn't take any pictures of those things. They didn't notate any of those items. They didn't anything. They just immediately pulled in Mr. Alan Kelly and accused him of murder, took his wife into another room and accused her of lying and saying that she didn't hear the amount of shots she said she heard, and she changed how many shots she actually heard. Now, if she wanted to lie for her husband, she would just say that that he wasn't even there, or she would make up something to make it like he wasn't there at all, or make up something other than miscounting how many shots she actually heard. But the prosecution is trying to make this jury believe that this man killed this person in cold blood and was not trying to protect his property, and that he had no right to shoot. Regardless, earlier in the day, when he was being just random shots being shot at his property or on his property or what have you, he does have a right to protect his land, and he didn't shoot at where the shots were coming from. He just shot up in the air, and there's proof of that. There is no proof of his weapon being shot out into where they're saying they found this body. And the issue at hand is they took the jury to the man's home, to his land, to survey this property. And the jury is not able to come up with a verdict right now. We are on verdict watch. The jury tried to deadlock on Friday because the jury just wants to go home. This trial has gone on longer than it needs to. And the prosecution has pulled every rabbit out of their hat that they possibly can, and they have not been able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and the jury is hung. The judge allowed the jury to go home early on Friday because he was like, no, this has been 4 weeks of trial, and there's no way that you have been able to go through 4 weeks of evidence and testimony in less than 8 hours. Basically, that's how long that they have deliberated by Friday. So he was like, I just can't. There's no way that you can be deadlocked in 8 hours. So he let them go home early on Friday, and they returned today, and they came back just a little bit ago and said they were still deadlocked. They were hung. And so the judge gave them the speech of, what can we do to move this process along? How can we help clarify any evidentiary questions that you have? Because they have asked, is the visit to the land considered evidence? They have even tried to tell the judge how many are for and against, and the judge has not looked at that. They have asked for clarification on some of the jury instruction. They are very, very unsure about this case. They are not sure which way to go. The prosecution has given lesser charges for them to consider, which I think that's what is also confusing for them, because they're not sure what to do with this judgment. And also, from what I understand, there's only 8 jurors who have to decide instead of 12 here. I'm not really sure what that is. It might be an Arizona thing. But I know a couple of jurors tried to get out of the trial during this trial because it was going on so long. They were like, yeah, we got to go. But at the end of the day, I'm confused as to what will happen if the jury is hung. Is the prosecution going to go after this 70-something-year-old man again? Are they that adamant? I mean, I'm not really sure if they're going to drop the charges. Are they going to dismiss this? Or are they going to keep this hanging over him for the rest of his natural life, because this is really, really sad. It's very frustrating that this is happening in America, that, you know, here you have a known drug trafficker that has been going back and forth across this man's property. You have a known drug trafficker, a felon at that, that is a witness in a trial whose testimony should be considered irrelevant because he is a felon. He has spent time in prison here for drug trafficking, and yet you're putting him as your star witness. That doesn't make sense. Make it make sense, people. So we are waiting for the jury to come back. I don't think they're going to come up with a verdict at all. So we shall see. But that is catching you up on the George Allen Kelly versus Arizona trial. I just think that it is a farce. I think it's a waste of Arizona money. And I think that, you know, if Mr. Kelly wanted to not call this in, he didn't have to call this in. He could have thrown that guy's body right back over into the Mexican side. I mean, my God, he lives on the border. I mean, there are so many other options he had besides calling it in. And now he's paying the price for that. You know, I mean, think about it. But he did the right thing. And by doing the right thing, now he could possibly spend the rest of his life in prison. So that is my take. That is my alternate self-appointed juror point of view, because I would be holding out as well on this jury panel. You guys let me know what you think about it. But that is what I think about it. So I would love to hear your comments and questions, and I will let you know as soon as the verdict comes out. But I do believe this jury is going to be a hung jury. I don't think they're going to compromise. So we'll see. And if they do become a hung jury, what do you think? Do you think the prosecution is going to go for this again? Thank you so much. I appreciate your support. Kasamnida.